Here is a quick guide to configure your first invoice in Invoice Ninja. Let's create our first invoice by selecting our client. You can see the client appears and also the client contacts appear. And the checkbox defines whether this contact will receive an email. So if you don't want the contact to receive an email, we can just deselect it here. We have the invoice date and the due date. And you can see here we've selected net 55. And what this means is that the due date will be 55 days from this date here. So if you're happy with this, you can leave this blank. We'll calculate this later for you. If you want to collect a deposit first, you can enter this here. And you'll also can define when you want to when you need to receive this deposit by. The invoice number is another concept which we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but you can leave this blank. This typically gets auto-generated and we use a counter in the background that will increment as we go. We'll leave it blank for now because there's some more advanced concepts that goes around invoice numbers. You can insert a purchase order number. You can also assign a discount, either a percent or an amount. So let's have a little go here and let's create an invoice for, let's say for a server. And it's going to cost $50. We're going to charge 10% of tax. Only one tax though. So you can see the total will be $55, but the first payment is a $10 payment of your partial amount. And we have this here. Fantastic. But we want to customize this a little bit more because it's a slow server, but we want to explain maybe a different type of server. So we need to add some more options into the invoice here. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a custom field in. So let's head into the custom fields tab. And in the products, we're going to have a server type. And we want to have a drop down, which will have a list of server types. And these server types, we're going to have, say, an AMD server or a Intel server. Let's add another one. Let's make this interesting. Maybe a date. And we'll call it the installation date. Good. Now we need to show these onto the invoice. How are we going to do that? So in invoice design, let's go to the product columns and we're going to add in those two custom fields. So we want the server type to come after the description and the installation date. Well, let's put that first. We'll put that there and let's save. Okay, let's go back to the invoice. So here you can see now, we can select our server type. And our slow server type is going to be an Intel. And we're going to want to install this, let's say on the 1st of October. Great. How does this look? You can see the invoice has been updated. And you can see that it respects where we put the products in order. And here we go. So this is looking good. But we might want to charge the user a server setup fee. So how do we do this? Well, these are unit costs and quantities. It doesn't really fit. So we need like a service table. So we can add in a services table in settings, tasks, and we're going to show the tasks table. Let's save this. If we go back into the invoice, you can see now we've got an additional tab here. We've got a product tab, which has our server, and also a tasks. So we can now go in and add our setup. And it's going to be a server setup, $100 an hour. We're going to charge some tax. What does this look like now? So you can see we have two tables, one for the products, one for the services. And you can see the services gives you rate and hours. We've got our invoice now looking pretty good. This is the plain design. I think we can do a little bit better than the plain design. Let's change this up to, let's say, business. That's looking great. Great. If you want to have auto billing enabled here, We can turn this on at this point. And let's save. Let's save this. Great. So we've got our invoice here. You can see our invoice numbers 0002. I think we can do a little bit better than this. Let's go into, you can customize the patterns of your invoice numbers. So you've got these little variables here that you can use to configure a custom number pattern. So for this company, we want to use maybe a date variable of a year with a counter. So this will give you 2021 dash and the counter. And the counter is currently at 3. So let's save this. And this will only affect invoices going forward. So if we clone this invoice and save, you can see now our invoice number is the year with the next counter. And you can get some very intricate, complicated number patterns going here. You can integrate client counters, whatever your heart desires. So that's a brief look at getting an invoice going, and it's just scratching the surface of the power of Invoice Ninja to customize your invoices. So I hope this has helped, and stay tuned for some more.